Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of The Last Click. I'm really privileged to be able to start this journey and have such great folks being part of it. Pratyush Kumar is someone I've known in the industry for a number of years now. I have a ton of respect for. When I came into from e-commerce at Home Hardware and I moved over to marketing, he was doing some amazing digital things for that industry that are now just paying off. And probably the dealers and the business is now just recognizing how right he was with his digital strategy. And it takes an innovator and someone to push the comfort zone. And I really respected and appreciated what I saw because I knew where his vision was going. I struggled with some of the same opportunities in big organizations, but I can guarantee you that where people thought it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago to where it is today is thanks to this gentleman right here. And I have the pleasure of interviewing. So, Pratyush, would you like to do an intro?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I mean, it's a privilege to be here. I'm genuinely excited about this conversation. And yeah, I still remember those days where we were doing some path-breaking work way ahead of its time at probably a conventional retailer, if I put it that way. Um, yeah, I still remember going and pitching the idea of monetizing your on-site inventory to the dealers, and they were just not understand as to how could you go and make money out of your website where somebody was showing an ad. But yeah, having done that, I'll quickly take you through. So my name is Pratyush Kumar. I'm a digital media executive. I have about 17 years of experience spread across two continents. I've started my work in Asia. So my early career was rooted in India and working there in the digital and the retail space. Moved to Canada a few years back, and then I've had the privilege of working with, I would say, the biggest of the retailers in the country that included Sobeys and Loblaws. One very, I'd say, one thing consistent that happened with me on both of these retailers was the fact that I had the opportunity to go and launch. So I created and launched a retail media network for Sobeys, which was Empire Media Plus. At the same time, I also had my very key role in shaping how Loblaw Advance has come up to be in the last year or so in terms of the product innovations. So I led the product and so basically it was taking something from zero to one. And that is the kind of work that I like to do. As of now, I work as an independent consultant, and I work with CPGs, mostly the executives, helping them figure out how to put their dollars to the right use. And that is also because of the fact that I think retail media has been, I would say, the third wave, the third revolution in the digital space, right? After search and social, this is the third one, booming, going up, catching up extremely fast, and everyone's going after it. Why? Because they can see the returns.
Right.
So I work for Wonder Brands, again, a conventional company, if you look at it that way, has been making breads for over 100 years. However, extremely forward in the thinking, and they're rightly so because they want to stay ahead of the curve. I have the privilege of, again, working with the best of the brands like the Wonder Breads, the Italiano, Country Harvest. These are staples. People see these things almost every day on the table, and they have an association. So working with these companies, what one thing that has been consistent that I would say, practiced throughout my journey, throughout my career, has been I wanted to always be in a place where I could show value and how media drives the purchase. So it was not about just driving impressions and clicks. The vanity metrics are fine, but then how does that impression, how does the click actually translate into sales? That is what I've been after, because I think that is one question that everyone in retail wants answered, and everybody loves to see those dollar values. So that's exactly what I've been working on, and I think I'm looking forward to how we get deeper into that topic today.
It's fantastic. I think uh, what I appreciated with where you take brands is you put them into something that's a little bit uncomfortable because they're forced to think differently. They're forced to look at their data and understand the insights correctly, and they take out some of the biases within our industry. And you talk about retail media, and I had the pleasure of starting up retail media. We didn't call it retail media at the time with Walmart, and specifically Drew Cashmore, good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And we partnered with an agency, and we really launched that concept of supplier dollars getting invested right on our website versus display ads somewhere else. And we would build microsites and we would build custom newsletters, homepage takeovers at the time. And all of these things, we saw the value back then because our suppliers were speaking to the exact audience where their product was and how valuable that was versus being out on other channels. And now today, it's branded retail media and so many people have the opportunity to be there. And for CPG brands, I think it's one of the best plays that they can do. Now that you're in it and living it and breathing it, tell me about the struggle, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's because of the ROI being so healthy. It's easier, but there's got to be the internal battles of taking money from one area of business and funneling it into a new area of business and saying, hey guys, I know we've used to use direct mailers or spend a lot of money on radio, but I want to start moving 10, 20, 30, maybe even up to 50% of that budget into a new digital strategy. Tell me about that process.
Yeah, I mean, that retail media has been called multiple names in the past, right?
Yep.
Even when it was in full, people used to call it shopper marketing for the longest time because it was
Yep.
limited to offline stores. And then came the online boom. Investments started happening in the online space. It was very difficult to explain. And I would say, even today, not everyone understands retail media. There's only a handful of people, even in the large organizations, who understand retail media and how it is incremental and not it's not a left pocket, right pocket thing, if I put it that
Right.
way, right? But most of the people see it that way. And hey, if you take my trade dollars, you're basically taking my trade dollars and putting into retail media. So I just basically moved my dollars and it's an account game than anything else. But that's not
Right.
the case. Retail media has been proven to drive incrementality. It has proven to show that value. And people who've seen it, they start investing more. Most of the matured CPGs, I would say the biggest of the CPGs, if you look at the global ones, they actually have full-fledged retail media teams on their payrolls, whose
Yep.
job is just to constantly work with the RMNs and assess and audit and understand what is working, what's not working, right? The reason is you can actually go and scrutinize every single detail. So when I talked about earlier about how impressions and clicks are good, but then you need to see how it translates into dollar value, that is what first we need to prove, and retail media has proven. Not everyone, but most of the retail media networks are built on the fact that they would have measurement, they would have closed loop, they would be able to go and attribute because they have the loyalty program or they have the customer data, they have on-card sales, they can go and match it. That is exactly what matters, right? So
Mhm.
explaining as we went ahead, and this is where I see when I took over the retail media mandate at Loblaws for Advance, I made sure instead of just looking at it as a business, which was a money-making business for the organization, I suggested the team, let's look at it as a product. First, to go and let's do the functional benefits that the product provides. And the functional benefit of a retail media network is measurement, is the attribution. Once you've figured that piece out, you automatically start seeing customers coming in because they do see value. So that is how I have seen it. So I would say at times you have to be disciplined about how you go and do these things and do it consistently by showing so it's not full scale rollout on day one, it's piecemeal, but it scales extremely fast.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of my key learnings back in the day, and anyone that's heard me speak before, I often refer to this toothpaste and tuna example.
Yeah.
And basically, I had a merchant that was trying to grow the category of toothpaste, and they were discounting the items, but the sales remained flat. And that's because people typically brush their teeth in the same cadence and consume it at the same rate. So once a month, they need a new one, or every 2 weeks, depending on how much you brush your teeth. So they couldn't actually sell physically more toothpaste because their audience consumed at the same rate. And I found through basket analysis at Walmart that whenever we actually sold tuna, people were going to brush their teeth more frequently. And by selling more tuna, you increase the rate of consumers brushing their teeth or doing oral care. So you sold more in that category. I think there's still a lot of opportunity for people to take that thinking, especially with retail media, and say, okay, our core products are this. What other companies can influence the sales of our product and do some collaboration together in those cross-functional collaborative agreements and do go to market at the same time with ways to support each other. And I don't see enough of that in retail right now. I still see the race to discounting.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and I think that the idea of being complementary products is
Mhm,
something they might not even they could be completely different categories, like tuna and toothpaste. By the way, I honestly uh, I didn't know about this, so
mhm,
that's something new that I learned this morning. Amazing, but yes, I think there are a lot of these examples that happen within a store, right? Even working for Wonder Brands these days, I remember we have been looking at we wanted to go ahead and run a grilled cheese campaign, but the point was we make breads. Is we realized that there are a lot of cheese companies who don't have the opportunity to go and show grilled cheese. Why? Because they don't have the bread. So it's
right,
the recipe itself. And what matters the most is for the end consumer, it's not about showing them a product, right? It's not about how you show them one single product. It's about being useful. So
right.
you show them the use, you show them how it adds value to the life. And that is what sticks, right? So for the longest time, brands have worked on the way I put it is there's been a myth about how brand marketing and performance marketing are different, right? The brand marketers always thought that they had to look at their product and their product as a baby and they would massage it that way, while the performance marketers always look at numbers. That line is blurred now, right? The line is
I
blurred
agree.
simply because of the fact that, first, we all know customer journey is not linear.
Yep,
Purchase decisions have probably been made by the first time a customer interacts with something. And then they just simply go on getting impacted with multiple touch points before they end up making a purchase. So it's not the same like it used to be a few years back. And because of that, I think if I look at the way we talk to customers, the way we interact with customers or go to market in our approaches, it has to all revolve around the functional benefits, usefulness,
mhm,
than just simply putting a brand across. You could spend millions and billions of dollars on doing that. But if you look at a platform like TikTok, the reason that platform has caught everyone by surprised and it's growing at such an exponential rate is because of the fact that they don't have this authenticity in what they do. They have
mhm.
functional benefit, they have authenticity, and they make the stuff that they do believable.
Yeah, I
So yeah,
agree. And I think there's two things you touched on there. One is, as we were talking about, as we were talking about toothpaste and tuna, you can see a lot of complementary brands, especially for selling bread, right? Like if tuna is selling, maybe people are buying more bread. If Nutella is selling, maybe people are buying more bread, right? So there's so many opportunities within that category to be complementary with some other categories or some other items. So that's one that I think is a really good lesson for people to take away. But the brand versus the performance marketing agency, I really believe, and I've seen it happen too many times where there's silo meetings happening. Marketing's
yeah,
meeting with the brand team, marketing's meeting with the performance team. And then you plan the year, and those two teams haven't even worked together. Where I really believe at the annual planning meeting, everyone needs to be at the table and be treated as one team, not brand. And everyone should be open to opinions in those meetings and take the egos off the table and have really good conversations because your goal is to grow the retailer or the CPG. Your goal is not to grow my brand agency or my performance agency. Those will be things that happen from a good partnership with the retailer or DTC or CPG. So I think we need to switch how those meetings and annual planning operational processes happen.
yeah. I can go deeper into that, right? Because yes, there, and I would say almost every time this is the case. Performance marketing teams, and I can say this why because I held multiple roles at Sobeys, started off with digital and brand management on the other side, where I was very close to the brand and what's the brand language, what's the brand tone, how do we go to market, how do we show up, etc. And moved on to taking over performance marketing. And suddenly I realized I was cut off from those meetings where the
Right.
creative agencies were coming and doing the pitches. And I would only be involved in the meetings when the media agencies would come with their plans and they're presented saying, this is how we think we should be spending the money.
Yeah.
And one thing that happened was, of course, our CMO there, Sandra, she was extremely sharp at this. She saw the fact that these were in silos. So she was the one who started forcing it, saying performance and brand have to be together. You have to make a decision together. Why? Because it's your budget, but this guy is spending it. And
Yeah.
eventually, this guy's success depends upon your success too, right? So everyone is succeeding together, which means you can't go and create silos. So
Exactly.
breaking the silos is important. But as I said earlier, right, because customer journey is not linear, and I can take an example, right? Retail media networks. For the longest time, RMNs were looked at as the last click, as the lower funnel tactic. And because of that, they would only get like 0.1% of the budget, 0.5% of the budget, or the leftovers coming out from the
Yep.
IMC campaigns or IMC projects. Over time, what has happened is now the RMNs themselves can go and claim, and they're actually claiming and they're fighting in the space, saying, hey, we are full funnel. We can actually drive awareness. We can help you launch products. And they actually do. Think
Mhm.
of it this way. If I have to go and launch a product today, I sell at Loblaw and Walmart, then why would I not go and use their platforms where they have the first party data, where they have the ability to go deeper and understand and make my campaign more targeted, more precise than going and creating a campaign on Meta or somewhere
Yep.
where I do not use the first party data. I simply go and use normal audiences that I could get in the market and just pray and pray. So that is what is changing. And hence that line is blurred. With this blurring, what needs to happen is also the fact that these teams need to start working together and maybe even start work being on the same team. That is how complementary these have to be. Just like the tuna and the toothpaste example, or just like Nutella and a bread example, right?
Yeah.
These teams have to go hand in hand. And if they do it, you can go and deliver much more value than what you would do otherwise.
Agreed. Agreed. I'm going to take us a different direction now. I wanted to talk about because there's tons of myths in our industry, and I get the pleasure of writing theses and debunking them. So I'm grateful for that. But what's the biggest myth about building an iconic commerce brand that needs to be debunked from your opinion?
I think it's the same thing. The myth is the fact that performance and brand are different.
Right.
That is the biggest myth, and that is what needs to be debunked. So maybe I spoke too early because this is something that's top of mind for me. I've been trying to break this for the longest time. But as we go ahead, and you would see this happening, now you'd see these big retailers or big CPGs, they have started building their own practice in house. And the reason for this is because of the fact that almost every CMO wants to see a dollar value for the
Mhm.
dollar spending. It's no more about just going and being happy with the brand equity growth of or top of mind recall. They matter. I'm not saying that they do not matter, but they go a long way in building that brand affinity and the brand recall with the customers. But at the same time, if you're not moving the needle, marketing is still looked at as a cost center, and that is what needs to change because marketing budgets are under pressure. No CMOs can say that their marketing budgets have been growing 10% or 15% year on year. They
Yep.
basically end up getting the same budget, but they need to do more because companies' targets are growing. So with that, you would start seeing a lot more pressure on the marketing teams where they have to deliver value. And this is where attribution, measurement, being able to go and close the loop, these things become important. And that's the reason I, again, say last click. Last click is extremely, extremely useful and important as long as you can go and attribute it back.
Yeah, I agree, and I have fun with the title of this because I want to get to how we convert audiences, and the last click is usually something that we try to quantify. But with the reality is, I don't believe in the last click. I think there's many micro moments that customers will shop a brand or a retailer, and that can be an email, a social post, a direct mailer, word of mouth,
Yeah.
influencer, and all of those should be getting credit for that journey of the customer because they probably saw it 7 to 10 times before they made that purchase,
Mhm.
and Google is not the last click, or maybe even retail media was like, that was the transaction because they saw that banner and they were like, but they had all of this prior micro moments
Yeah.
with the brand, with the retailer. And that was to give 100% attribution to that final moment, discredits everything else that the marketing team was doing. And I think that's the biggest opportunity when you get too into a P&L and too CFO focused is like, oh, it was this channel that drove it. And they discredit the whole journey of a customer, and especially on some items. And when you think about appliances as an example, it
Mhm.
takes customers roughly 90 days to make that purchase decision. And because they made it through a Google ad, people are like, oh, let's invest more into Google. And you're like, that's It was the research that they did. It was a column that they saw. It was the comparison feature of the website that they did on day 45. It was
Yeah,
all of they went into store and they touched, they felt the product, and then they came home and they happened to click on an ad, because they don't shop like you and I. You and I know, hey, that's a sponsored ad. I'll just go to the one below. It's an organic ad, and I'll click on it. But we'll give credit to, like, to me, that's why I have fun with this title of The Last Click, because I wanted people to understand it's far more complicated than that.
it is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Now,
think. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I'd say I've been using this example for over 15 years now, right? And this is because I remember very early in my career, I was launching an site for a major retailer in India. And this is a problem that we are having. Every time there was one channel that looked extremely healthy and all the budget was going to it, but then we would not spend on the other channels, or everybody was questioning the existence of those channels. I said, hey, why are you spending money there? Because this is what is
Yeah.
converting. And I was baffled. So I would just go in and spend my time looking into Google Analytics and going through multiple attributes and seeing as to where is the thing that what could I uncover? And that's when I uncovered the assisted conversion metric, right?
Mm.
Now, to go back and explain how assisted conversion worked, it was kind of difficult because it was very old school. I'm talking about 15 years back. People didn't even understand how Google Analytics can actually go and tell you all of these things in terms of how conversion happens. So I use the analogy of a soccer team.
Mhm.
Right. And I use, if in modern day, if I had to go and put it, I also used this in one of my conferences or any of my interviews where I said, the Argentinian team has Messi. He ends up getting the final kick and he ends up scoring the goal. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the players on the team had zero contribution, right?
Right.
And that is the entire reason why, if you look at basketball, soccer, football, they all have assists as a key metric that they measure. And that
Yep.
is exactly what goes into the digital funnel too. So instead of getting last click and using last click as the yardstick to measure the performance of everything, what we did at Loblaw in my previous role, we came up with multi-touch attribution. MTAs are extremely powerful if done right, because that is what solves for the decision making where marketers are stuck saying, all my budget needs to go to one particular channel because that's delivering a ROAS of 15x while everything else is zero or has zero impact. So once you start doing those weights in terms of where the customer interacts, right? And as you rightly said, appliances have very longer sales cycles as compared to grocery, where people are seeing the ad on Thursday when the flyer
Right.
drops and they need to make a purchase by the weekend or maybe by the end of next week. So you have
Yep.
14-day attribution window. So we would only use 14 days as an attribution window. I remember in the fashion apparel space, we would use 28 days because that is the amount of time people do still need to take. But then sales cycles can be larger. Look at cars, right? Automobile. People take much more
Yeah.
longer in terms of going and converting because there's so much research that goes into it. So that needs to be changed. And that's the reason why I think this is important to go and talk about it and give this credit that yes, last click is extremely important, but you can't put the entire weight onto it. It has to be distributed, and you need to give credits to all the other channels that played a role in bringing that customer to that moment.
Agreed. Agreed. And the sports analogy is great. And I'll relate it back to my son who loves Cole Caulfield for the Montreal Canadiens. He scored 51 goals this year. I love a different player on the Montreal Canadiens. He's the captain, Nick Suzuki. He assisted on 30 of Cole Caulfield's goals, and I love it because I always say Nick Suzuki makes other players better. Cole
Hmm.
Caulfield gets to score a lot of goals, and he gets all the fame. He scored 51 goals this year, and he's the last click. Everyone's like, "Oh, look at how great he is," and he is a talented player. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's the supporting cast that makes him the player he is today. And that's the same with how we think of a marketing flywheel, is there's a bunch of supporting cast to whatever is your primary last click. I bet you it's not doing it on its own.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
When we talk to DTC brands and um, where I want to go with this one is in the final moments of a digital customer journey. What do you find is failing the most with DTC brands right now? And I have a few suggestions, but I would love to hear your opinion on just how they can do better with the digital journey. I want people to take this opportunity, these podcasts as learning moments. I'm always a student of retail, so when I have someone your caliber on here, it's great for people to hear opinions like this.
Yeah, the way I would put this is the DTC brands these days, they win the awareness battle, but they lose the conversion war, right? And this is happening not in the last 10 feet, it's happening in the last 10 seconds. So that is how I see this. And this is primarily because going back to the earlier example, there's a lot of weight put onto the creating of awareness and going and buying media and creating the hype across the multiple channels. At times, I've seen marketers also struggle to add more channels to their marketing mix. Why? Because, oh, I only have three channels so far. It'll look bad if I go back to my boss and tell them that, hey, I couldn't find any more places to spend money on, right? So there's always this pressure that people feel of going and spending. I say, do not do that. Be extremely laser focused. Where is your customer? Where is your audience? That is where you spend your money first. But at the same time, while you spend and while you've put in so much of effort in creating the hype, creating the noise, bringing the customer down the funnel, don't lose them in the last 10 seconds or the last 10 feet, right?
Right.
And this is where the digital aisle becomes extremely, extremely important. So the customer has landed onto your page now. The customer is in the search results page or the actual PDP. The moment the customer lands there, that is where I see most of the DTC brands losing. It could be sloppy copy, not
Right.
so it's basically the hygiene of the page that where people are losing. It's like poor imagery, high resolution images,
No videos.
no videos, no reviews. There's no
Yeah.
investment being made into writing the copy which will solve for why to buy it or
Yeah.
this people, right? So I think I talked about the functional benefits. We're not doing that in the last 10 feet. And this is where customers come in. A customer wants to make a decision then, and they
Yeah.
should be able to make a decision reading everything within that one single page. If you can't answer it, you lost the customer is gone. And that is what is happening. That is where the brands lose. So I think there has to be enough stress put onto the last 10 feet, last 10 seconds conversion window,
Love that.
because that is where the customers are finally in the moment of making a decision. And you cannot ignore it. So spend all the money on creating awareness, but at the same time, you can't keep your eye off from the digital aisle.
Yeah, I agree. The last 10 feet is very important. And also that first moment of interaction with a consumer. And I find now, back in the day when I worked for Future Shop, we had this thing called the 3 meter rule, is
Mhm.
where customers would walk into the store and I wouldn't say we would be aggressive with the customer, but we wanted to make sure the customer knew our name, that we were there to support them. We saw that you brought in a flyer. If there's anything that you need support with, product knowledge, maybe listening to a stereo system or seeing a TV, my name's Chris. Let me know, and I will be just over here, and you can come and get me as you're required. I can walk to a store today for 45 minutes and not interact with a single person. And I
Never.
think never, right? And
That's it's a joke because I remember I was trying to explain someone digital shelf the other day. They were not
yeah,
very well versed with retail media and how all of these things work. So I used an analogy again, going by exactly what you said. Right in the traditional world, we used to have the aisle, and
yeah,
in the aisle, the merch team was responsible to make sure your merch showed up in the right places, your shelves were stocked properly, your logos are facing in the front at the eye level of the customer. That is what created experience, right? Even today, most of the CPG brands have their merch teams on the field, always going and doing these things. And the moment they see a shelf is empty, you have started losing the customers. If your products are not placed right, you lose the customers. That's exactly what happens in the digital shelf too. The digital shelf is your actual shelf from the store, and
yeah.
your merchandise has to be placed right. It has to be placed right where it strikes that relation with the customer in real time and makes that purchase. They have to pick it up and add it to their basket immediately. If they walk past it, they're not coming back.
100%. I agree with that. I think the other thing that I will say, as we try to become more omni-channel and have a good seamless shopping experience, we don't take the same principles from online to the store. And what I mean by that is, and you and I have probably talked about this in the past, where if someone is shopping your website, what's the one thing you don't want to happen? And that's for them to click and check out as a guest,
Yeah.
because They don't sign up for an email. They don't stay engaged. You don't have any kind of opportunity to create a rapport with them. And we do everything possible to make sure that a customer will sign up and engage with us and create a profile.
Yeah.
Now, when they go to the store, they pick their own items, they check themselves out, they've spent 45 minutes, they haven't talked to anyone, no one's engaging with them to sign up to a loyalty program. Like, we expect it all to be turnkey for them. So every store visit, we're okay and we accept treating them like a guest checkout. But
Hmm.
online, the digital team refuses to have a guest checkout. And it's like there's something disconnected there in that shopping experience.
Yeah, I think what's disconnected is, again, the synergy that offline and online, for the longest time, they've been looked at very differently. Uh,
Right.
Even today, when you go into the store, store ops teams probably do not give enough credit to the ecom divisions. Why? Because ecom probably brings in 1% of the sales as compared to
Right.
99% of brick and mortar sales, right? Especially the Canadian market, where 94% approximately sales still happen in the stores. There's
Yeah.
not enough credit that goes to the ecom business. What they do miss out is the fact that even at that level, there's a huge research. So that idea of research online and buy in the store, or research online purchase in the store, that is something which has consistently been there. And whoever has managed to bridge this gap of the phygital world, if I put it that way,
Yep.
uh, being able to bridge digital and
To
physical
bridge the
and
2, yeah.
yeah, whoever has managed to bridge that gap is doing amazingly well, right? So there are brands, and I'm talking about other countries where I've seen this happen, where a customer with all of these digital shelves and the digital cards being in the stores, and the ability to move up to the customer in real time within the aisle and push them with personalized offers. That is where the synergy has now come together. And you see that happen because now the customers don't feel intrusive. I, for the longest time, said personalization should never feel creepy. It should feel native. And this is what native feels, that because you watched something online before you even walked into the store, I know that you are interested in XYZ. When you walk into a store, I'm able to curate your way as to how do you browse the aisles? How do you go about it?
Right.
I have an offer for you. Can I push it to you in real time without making it intrusive? That is where customers start seeing value and they start becoming more closer to the brand. So that needs to be bridged, and that will only happen when, I think, these two worlds are talking together. As of now, they still behave very differently,
Yep.
but as I said, the analogies are the same. Digital shelf is as good as a traditional shelf. Sponsored search is as good as the digital end cap,
Yep.
right? So, sorry, yeah. So the end cap versus the digital sponsored search, it's the same thing. It's the analogies, but they are almost the same, and the customers do not differentiate anymore.
Yeah, I love those examples of how it used to be this way and now it's this way. I remember when I built my first website, my parents didn't understand what I was doing. So I had to tell them, hey, think of the consumer catalog and how you're physically flipping through those pages. I'm just making that on a computer, on a digital screen, so
Yep.
that you can digitally flip through. And then an email is just basically when you go to your mailbox and you're picking out an envelope, now your email is digitized. So your mail is digitized, and breaking it down that way brings people along, even internally, to have those conversations. It brings people along because they can connect those type of legacy things we used to do to the new technology. Um,
Yeah.
to wrap things up, this has been amazing. I do have two more questions for you. So, one, what is a bold prediction you have for the future of commerce that you see might be coming?
Things are changing rapidly, and everyone's talking about AI and all these things. But my bold prediction is not about AI. AI is going to be fundamentally built into almost everything that we do.
Yeah.
Um, I have three things that I think are going to happen over the next few years, especially in the Canadian market. One, CPGs would move most of their budgets from brand to retail media. When I say brand to retail media, they'll still work with like the brand teams will still work, but instead of spending all of their dollars through the walled gardens, where the walled gardens get most of the money as of now, it will start moving towards retail media. And that is primarily because of the fact that the purchase signals, the first party data is with the RMNs, and that is where you can go and measure and show value. Unless until walled gardens open up and they don't be walled gardens anymore, this is not going to change. So eventually, that is where the world is going. Second, what I see happening is currently there's only a handful of RMNs in this country. Uh, if you go and name it, you can count them on fingertips, like top 4 or 5. Outside of that, there's no RMN that exists. In the US, like probably 300 RMNs, and
Yeah.
there's every day there's a new one that pops up. The same thing is going to happen in Canada too. There's going to be commoditization of RMNs. And that is why, because everyone is going to start seeing value. And hence, everyone is going to start looking at the passive revenue stream, which is extremely high in margin. And that is going to happen, which will basically create pressure on the RMNs then. Why? Because the budgets will start getting fragmented. So that is something that we need to start looking at and thinking as to how do you insulate yourself from that change. And the third and the biggest thing that I see happening, which I talked about earlier, is, and nothing against the agency model here,
Yep.
but there is going to be extremely high push on bringing this entire business in-house. Almost every big CPG is now setting up the practice of creating their RMN teams. They still work with the agencies. However, there'll come a time where I feel they would just pull out of the agency model for performance marketing, and they would make retail media and performance marketing teams together, and they would start executing in-house. Simply because of the fact that you don't lose your commissions, you don't impact your return on ad spends. But at the same time, it gives you the agility, the speed, and yeah. So eventually, in short, retail media is going to eat digital advertising.
Yeah, I see part of what you're saying there. I've been in this industry long enough to see the ebbs and flows of it going internal, external, internal, external. I do think there's a good blend because with agencies, you can flex up when you can't get the headcount,
Yeah.
right? Like internally, sometimes to spend I don't know, $100,000 on a new staff member takes 18 months to get approved. But to go and spend 400,000 at an agency is no problem. It's a bizarre conversation that you have internally at retailers, but they don't want to add the extra headcount to their business and to their P&L. So it's easier to spend dollars with an agency. So I think there will be this blend, this balance. And I agree, that bringing it in-house um, gives retailers or brands or CPGs the skill set in house. The one thing I will challenge people to consider too is you have to have the right culture where those people are staying on top of the trending technology, because a lot of new hires unfortunately get so busy on just doing their day to day, they're not staying on top of what's coming and how to keep evolving your business. Where I think agencies, because they're so working with many clients, there's all kinds of different best practices that they can pick up. So if you can
Mhm.
infuse that into your internal culture to feel that way and have that aspiration to continuously learn, then it will work.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, we'll see as to how the next few years span out. I mean, it's changing every day.
Yeah, and we'll come back 4 years from now. These cycles kind of are like Bitcoin. They go through a 4-year cycle all the time. The last question I have is about some advice, and not just from a corporate level, but from a personal level. As we have listeners here that may not have the same experience as you, what are some advices you can give to brands on
Yeah.
how they can create a deeper customer relationship or connection? And also, what kind of advice can you give to the people that are coming up behind us to give them nuggets to take away?
Hmm. Yeah, I think one thing that I strongly believe in, and I think I tell this to myself almost every day, and this applies to almost everything that we do, is I mean, stop trying to be relevant, start trying to be useful, right? The way I put this earlier as well. I mean, being relevant, for the longest time, we've talked about relevance, context. These things are not negotiable anymore. You have to do them irrespective. And hence,
Yeah.
you can't even say that, hey, I'm spending my time on trying to be more relevant and contextual to the customer. If you're not doing that, you already lost the battle. So you're not even
Yeah,
in the
too
game,
late.
right? Uh, but what matters now is being useful, being able to show how you strike that relationship. So the way I would put it is relevance is a media metric. Usefulness is a relationship metric, and that is what matters. So again, going by the tech talk example, when a creator puts out the content outside, which is not highly polished, which is not shot in a studio, I find it more relatable, and I
Right.
find it's useful, and that's the reason I engage with the brand there, and that is what matters. So that is what we should be looking at as to how do we create that usefulness, because the deepest brand relationships that I've seen, they were built on reliability, not on novelty. Novelty can last you for some time, but relationship goes much more deep.
I agree. I don't know if you read my book, but I talk about, I use Annie M as my, example, and we know how Annie M shops because we collect a bunch of data on her, and we know that Annie M will shop, every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
Hmm.
And because we know that she's of a certain age,
Yeah,
and we know that she's gonna buy these probably 10, 15 consumable items over and over again. What are we doing to add value to NEM? And the value is not about a discount that Saturday morning that she's coming in to shop. It's about maybe taking her shopping list off of her when she gets there and going and picking those items for her, or carrying it out to her car, or making sure that she's got a VIP parking space for the day because we know that she's this loyal customer without worried about the points. So those are the useful things that you can do for Annie M, or a mom who's got 2 or 3 kids shopping with her, and she's just trying to get home from work, take those kids to their next sporting event, and she's got 30 minutes to shop. Why are we watching her at store level struggle with 2 kids trying to get up and down each aisle versus going over to mom and saying, "Hey, give me half of your list. I'm gonna go
yeah,
pick those items for you, and I'll meet you back here in 20 minutes." Like, that is usefulness, and instead, we try to be so creative and so smart and create all these new things to chase after, but the fundamental is that connection with the customer and her going, "Wow, they just saved me 20 minutes of shopping around in a very" it's not fun shopping with kids.
yeah.
Like, it's it's one of sometimes it is if it's birthday shopping, but a lot of times it's a pain. So
We
find
over-engineer
moments,
stuff. Let's put it that way.
right? A journey. It's
Yeah.
exactly.
We over-engineer stuff when it could be as simple as just understanding what the customer needs because they're just like us.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Pratyush, my friend, thank you so much for today. Thank you for being part of the Last Click episode 2. If folks want to get connected with you, what's the best way? I'll put it in the description as well, but I would love to hear from you. What's the best way to connect?
No, I think, Chris, I absolutely enjoyed it. I love the conversation. Always fun chatting with people from similar industries and having these kind of conversations. If you want to reach me, anyone wants to reach me, LinkedIn is the best place you can find me. Look me up, Pratyush Kumar. You'll find me there. And I'm always open to having these candid conversations, coffee chats. So do not shy away. Reach out.
Amazing. If anyone's watching this video and you want to talk to somebody that's innovative, passionate about our business, and cares is probably the number one thing. Let's connect because he's just a true gentleman in the industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.